Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to yet another episode of In Conversation with Harvey. Today we're going to be dissecting a topic that is perhaps a bit more technical and educative with none other than my co-host Judy. We're going to be discussing the ins and outs of the corporate space, how we transitioned into the corporate space, and some of the challenges we experience in corporate Ireland today, but also some of the joys we experience as well, because it's not just been a journey of downs, it's also had many ups, and we'll dissect these here today. Please do feel free to share with us your own comments and opinions and views about how some of you transitioned into the corporate space or even out of the corporate space. Thank you for joining us today,
Thanks
Judy.
Thanks for having me, Harvey.
Now, you and I have spoken, I think, at great length many a time about some of the challenges we face in the corporate space, our transition into the corporate space, and also how we've managed to just handle some of the challenges as well. I remember you giving me tips not too long ago about managing expectations and all that. But just to start off, what was your entry into the corporate space like?
Oh, I felt like it was very short and technical. So I studied in college for 4 years. I did computer science, and going into that sector of tech, the stereotypical thing to do is, software development. But I was more of a creative character. I preferred the front end side of things, like, communications and design. So after college, I basically had to, I think I was lucky, actually. I had to find ways to stand out at my interviews. So my first job out of college was with Hubspot, and it's a wonderful company. I worked there for about 3 years, and I went straight into the customer service, and then from there I went into their services department. So the journey to even get there after college, I think I was very lucky because of my previous roles. My CV really stood out. And I've worked in previous tech companies. So I worked with Apple for a while, then I worked with Ericsson. So I was building up a portfolio. And I don't know, I'd say for me to get those other jobs, I think it was a miracle. It was literally a miracle. But working in those previous companies, I've had to build my portfolio and make sure I stood out, not just through my CV and not with the people that I knew. So I remember the tech lead who had interviewed me for the job at HubSpot had told me something very interesting, and I'll never forget it. He said, one of the reasons why we hired you was because you came from a very technical background, great customer service skills, but we also saw you had a very creative mindset. And so from then on, I just thought, oh my God, coming into this tech industry, you don't hear a lot about people who are creative in that mindset of wanting to to show that they are in that way. So I felt it was my superpower. And from then on, I always thought, okay, if I'm ever going to look for any role in the future, I have to make sure I use this creativeness that he was talking about as an advantage rather than as like, oh, I can only use that in my arts. Like from the artistic side of things, I can put that into my career as well, and the roles that I am going to get into. So it's finding those like little things that you find very unique about yourself, and trying to put that in alignment of what you have on your CV or your portfolio, and then just
so it sounds like your transition into the corporate space was one that was aided by your creativeness, which is, these are two lanes that people tend to want to separate a lot of the times, because it's either you're in corporate or you're a creative,
or you're just there,
and you're neither of the two. And so here we are, these people who are at a unique intersection where we can be creative and actively say no, my creativeness is a part of the package, and not willing to compromise that to enter into the corporate space. So it's interesting to see that that was something that you used as a strength,
Absolutely.
So, but then I also want to understand some of the challenges you faced before even getting into these roles, because it must not be easy being a full-time student and then working part-time then doing all these different things. In Ireland alone, I think the financial strain on students is massive, right?
It is very
You have to think about tuition, you have to think about accommodation, food, transport, clothing, social activities. Social activities being the last on that list, so some people don't even have social lives because of that pressure. How did you handle it at the time?
So I would start off by saying my first job while I was in college is I worked in the cinemas close to my home, my family's home when I lived with my parents. And I got fired from that first job after working there for about 6 to 8 months. I didn't pass the probation period. One of the reasons was that money went missing in the till. They didn't see me progressing in any way. So I had to get the boot. So it was my first job.
Right.
It was a terrible feeling for me. I felt like, oh my God, if I don't do well in this job and I'm in college, you know, how am I going to get the next one? Like, what's going to happen?
And the references as well?
The references, exactly, the references. How am I going to get a good reference? So I got into second year of college. I was very lucky because my father supported me financially. And I didn't have to actually put a lot of money into the course because he felt he was responsible as the father of the house. It's just part of like the culture, I guess. The cultural aspect. Yeah. So I still wanted to work for myself. I felt like I need to start making my own money. I didn't want to take money from my parents anymore. I wanted to be more independent. So my second job was at Pair Mobile. It was a mobile repair shop, and it was in Blanchardstown, very far from Lucan. But for me, I actually enjoyed that job because of the people I was with and the experiences that I gained. And from that point on, it was just like one after the other where I felt I was getting very lucky, but my mindset was to keep going, not to stop, like to keep going, do as much as you can, even while you're in college as a full-time student. It's like you are stressed out, but some other part of your mind is excited about college, is excited about being able to come into class and meet your class people who are from like international students. You're able to interact, you're able to just have some fun in some ways, and then going back home, you're like, oh, okay, I have to do this again tomorrow. But you're always aiming for a goal at the end, and that's really what kind of keeps you going through college, as stressful as it is. And going through those different roles and then going into college and then having my dad being able to financially support me, it had to stop like during the 3rd to 4th year of college. That's when the dynamic changed. I was like, oh, now it's adulting time.
It's time.
It's adulting time, you know. I had issues with my father at home, and things. I started getting cut off from certain things, and that's when I literally went 360. I had to kind of fend for myself into different spaces. So in the 3rd year of college, we had to look for an internship, you know, to actually get into the next degree of the stage of the degree. So that's when I got an internship at Ericsson, very luckily. And for me, that was the moving point of the whole aspect of my getting into a career was working in such a professional company and working with a professional manager who supported me. Getting those skills
before you get into the job market.
Yeah. He really supported me. It was like having a job dad. I don't know what you call it.
Mentor.
That's the word. Mentor, not job dad. Okay. And then he was such an amazing mentor, and he took me to so many events. He allowed me to take control of a lot of projects, and I was still a baby back then. So, you know, and I would say the challenge I even faced in that job was I was overlooked by some of my colleagues and peers. They were like, you look so young, you're just still in college. You know,
which is another point I'll touch on as well.
Your ideas might not be so great, you know, and I always felt small in some of the groups, but in other groups, I felt like I could have a voice because my manager was, I can actually contribute. So
which was phenomenal training ground, because I'm pretty sure when you did transition into like fully corporate, you had skills to take with you there.
Yes, I did. I really did. And those skills was like, when you go into these spaces where you feel that in the tech industry, you will work with people. If you're a 20-something-year-old, you're going to be working with people who are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, even 60s in some instances. So you have to understand how to communicate with these kind of colleagues and how to know that there are going to be some boundaries that you need to face. Maybe in how you talk about your weekend or what you can talk about. Different communications, styles, how they could etiquette, etiquette, and how they can actually see you as a young individual in the workforce. So I did face those challenges where I was judged for being very young, and you know, my ideas weren't always taken on board, and I had to fight to get, like, I wouldn't say a seat at the table, but a voice at the table. You know, because I'm a very soft-spoken person as well. So
it didn't help.
It didn't help. But when you go through those challenges and you recognize that there are things that you need to face in the workforce, in a corporate sense, you will get so used to being like, what's the word? You just want to stand up more rather than sit down, because it's your career, it's your life. You do more to get noticed, you know, get to know
which
people.
I'd say my transition into corporate space as well was fairly similar. I was coming from, unfortunately, I had no sort of like financial assistance from anyone. I remember putting myself through DBS, which was like $6K a year. You know what I mean? And I had to work like part-time and then do college full-time. So I did that for about 2 years. And it was the most stressful time of my life because I had no social life. I was working weekends, I was in customer service, and you can imagine the mayhem that is customer service in Ireland today. And it was retail.
Oh my
so
God.
that's even a bigger
wild.
stretch, right?
Yeah.
So I find I think at the end of those 2 years, I found myself feeling so unfulfilled. And I always knew that perhaps the college route was never for me, and I had just gone through it for the sake of pleasing people. Again, because I come from a family, some part of my family are very big on like degrees and education. You need a good education, you need a degree, you need all these different things, right? And in order for them to even see or respect you, they expect you to have that. And so naturally, there's nothing else that you can dream of for yourself other than that. And so a lot of my dreams sort of took a backseat, right? As I was trying to commandeer this life, this early 20-somethings, and working part-time, which seemed like full-time because I was working most of the weekends, so I was matching full-time hours anyway, just to cover college expenses. It was a lot. At the end of those 2 years, someone came to me with an opportunity and said, Harvey, I think you'd be great in finance, actually. I was just like, please, I'm in college. What do I know about finance? You know, I'm pretty sure the financial students are like, you know, way ahead of me. But then they were like, no, you can actually do an apprenticeship program. And I was like, really? Okay, tell me more. I'm intrigued. So here came this opportunity for me to work and do college at the same time and get paid for it and not be the one who's paying. You know what I mean? I was like, okay, now I'm doing a 9 to 5. My life is back and all that. But it was not the easiest transition to get into finance. Anyone who is in finance directly, you know that there's a lot of pressure. There's so many different people that want different things from you at the same time. There's expectations, there's goals, there's all these different things because you need to meet the bottom line, right? It's the financial world. People want their money. You're managing funds, you're managing this and that and the next. It was so gut-wrenching for the first 6 months, I will not lie, because no one told me that I knew nothing about corporate. I was literally just dropped in the deep end. I had no prior skills, like you said.
It's nothing like The Office.
Yeah, it's nothing like, you know what I mean? Because they romanticize it. They do. Like you see it on Suits, you see it on The Office, you see like all these different shows, like your Olivia Popes, and you think, oh my gosh, I can do that. And then you realize that it doesn't work like that.
It's different.
Exactly. So I found myself entering this corporate space in this company, and I was in the team where I'm the youngest person there. I'm also the least experienced person there. On average, all my teammates have 10 plus years experience in their jobs, and they're having to teach me to perform at the same level. Now, you can imagine the pressure of 10 years of compounded knowledge being given at you at one time. Now you need to know even
know it from like the get-go,
not just
like
the basics, but even the more advanced, complex things. And I remember sitting with my manager this one time, and I said, listen, I'm not coping. I've never been in a corporate environment before. I don't know any of these skills, and I had to start from scratch. This is how you manage expectations. This is how you communicate. This is what is expected of you. This is how you stand out. I had to like become a mentee of people who never signed up to become my mentors. I had to be willing to learn from all of them. So I think transitioning into the corporate space for a lot of people who are going to be coming out of college and maybe getting jobs in, you know, the big bad world, whether it's in laws,
tech and
finance, whatever it is, there's a lot that's going to be expected of you. And I think, you know, we've experienced some very painful moments. I've had moments where I even teared up and cried.
Oh, I have so many moments. Oh my God, I've had... I think my first job at Hubspot, I probably cried like 20 times in the bathroom. I would take my lunch break, okay, cry time, let me come back to my desk. And then I had to like whip myself, just like, come on, Gina, you got this, you know? Whip yourself into shape. And then it's normal, actually, because we're probably not the only ones who've cried in the workspace.
We're not. Even my manager was like, Harvey, listen, it's perfectly fine. It's okay. It's a lot of pressure. And you're very young as well. So
this is why even in the workspace now, especially in tech, they're having mental awareness programs where they will actually cover costs to see like a therapist or to see a counselor. And it's become so aware now because of how things were in the last 2 years or even prior to that. And I think it's important for companies to actually, because students who are coming out of college, there's a stress of college, first of all.
Exactly.
You know, and then maybe you take like 2 months off after college, and then you're back into the cycle again of working, project, all that kind of stuff. So I think it's important for companies to realize that students coming from college need that safe space and level of support as well. Exactly. So now I see it's happening a lot the companies I've worked in, and it's becoming more of a culture, I suppose.
Right.
And yeah, I suppose now anyone coming from college, or you know, it's good to know that you will have the support, but you should know that it's there.
You should know
some people
that it's
don't
there.
know
Some
it's
people
there.
don't know.
They don't know.
You should know that it's there.
You should
That
definitely know
it's
it's
for
there.
the most part available.
Yeah,
you can
exactly.
ask like HR,
Yes.
but mostly your managers will be like very quick
That's
to
the
tell
thing
you.
though, like coming into this workforce, you feel like you always have to be the best. You should not have any weakness in you. When I say weakness, I mean you shouldn't feel that, oh, you're too stressed out and you can't do your job today. You can't take a day off because you're feeling, you're trying to, you know.
Right, I deserve to be here.
Exactly. It's like, I should be here, so I should put my best, even if I'm stressed today, even if I'm feeling like really terrible.
Which is not the case.
I have to go into work. But if your manager, like, I remember my manager told me something, if you're not your best today, you're working with people, you can't be your best tomorrow or the day after. It's actually a burden for your colleagues to have you not fully ready for work.
Right.
So it's better you take the day off and just, you know, unwind and just relax.
I had somewhat of a similar instance as well, where I had to like stop and have my manager say to me, okay, Harvey, listen, it doesn't matter. You can take the day off, go for a mental break, whatever it is. It does not help with anything if you show up on the job and you're half ready and you're half present, because then the work that you deliver is subpar. You can make mistakes. Like in the world of finance, one mistake can cost people lots of money. So it's like you have to almost operate at the same level and accuracy of a machine, a computer basically,
because people don't want their money
Because people want their money, girl. Like, you know what I mean? So it's that like strict of an industry, and it's so, if you're not careful and if you are not resilient, if you're not ready and willing to only understand, not just understand yourself and what you're capable of doing, but also understanding what you're not capable of doing, and admitting that, hey, I don't know this, can you teach me, can you help me?
Yes, that's something that I've learned. It's like, don't be afraid to ask stupid questions. Never be afraid to ask stupid questions, because the person you're asking might not even know the answer. They'll have to get back to you, like, oh, let me get back to you, you know? So they're also thinking, oh, I don't know anything.
I don't know anything, what's going on? I'm here, I'm just up and about.
It's even happened to some of my managers. I asked them questions like, oh, you know what, let me get back to you.
Let me get back, because they themselves don't even know, and you thought it was such a silly question.
They're like, such a silly question, it's never gonna, even in team meetings, it's like, as a student, you know, you're coming from a inexperienced background, or maybe you're an intern in a company, you know, that's a big thing. So you're like in a table of, let's say an intern who's a developer, you're in a table of all these developers who know like 20 years, and you're like, oh, I don't want to ask them this question, like, is this code, you know? So don't be afraid to ask stupid questions, because whatever question you ask could literally be an answer to a situation
that a lot of people don't even know themselves as well. And also assuming, because I remember when I started my role, I had imposter syndrome.
Oh my God.
I know.
That is such a thing.
I don't deserve to be here, because why am I here?
Why is everyone so smarter than me?
Why is everyone so smart? Why does everyone know so much?
I
did not at the time give myself the grace of understanding that, hey, you're just new to this industry. You're literally a baby. All these people on average 10 plus years of experience. So if they know more, it's because they've been here longer and you're going to get there.
This is something.
But relax. You deserve to be here, and you do bring value to the team. Because I remember having a conversation with my AM at the time. And I said to her, listen, I don't know what value I'm bringing to this team, because I am the least experienced. I know most of nothing really. I think I can only complete maybe 2 checklists, and then everything else is entirely up to you. What am I doing? And she was like, no, Harvey, your presence is very felt, because the moment you take a day off, we can tell that, okay, the pressure's increased because certain things are not getting done. So you do bring value, and we're going to teach you more stuff as we go along. And that's when I think I became more comfortable with myself. But I think looking at my transition into corporate, my start till now, I'm at a space where I can action things very confidently and
you feel like, okay, I make a list of things, I can action on them, I can go with it.
So I think being organized and having a certain level of organization and time management skills and all these different elements does come into play. These are skills that you will learn over time, and you will learn just by watching the people that you work with, right? Your managers, your assistant managers, your colleagues that have been there for longer, the company culture and organization, all these things. You will learn from them. Don't expect to know.
Even if you're coming from a whole different background, and like for example, because I worked in retail as well. 360. Even if you come from a whole different background, for example, retail, and you're going into a whole different space, these things are going to be, like you said, it's something you learn, and you have to accept that you're not going to know everything at the start, and the imposter syndrome is
It's major.
It's major, literally major. I didn't
know.
even believe in it at the start. I was like, there's no such thing. I'm so
until
confident.
you were there.
And then it's like, you get to that point, you're like, oh my God, this is what it is.
Like, what am I doing
What
here?
am I
Oh my
doing
gosh.
here? Panic moment, press the button.
Yeah.
But like I had a colleague as well who said the same thing to me, that if you feel like you're not giving value to the team, think about the people you're working with, how many years of experience they've had, what they've done in the past compared to what you've done as well, but also don't compare your roles, don't compare your skills, because there's a reason why you're hired, there's a reason why you're in that space.
There's a reason why they even believed in you in the first
exactly.
place.
So always go back to that moment and just focus on that, and you're
very capable.
Exactly, very capable.
I remember my manager saying this to me. She was like, at the time, the imposter situation was happening, right? And she said to me, Harvey, stop comparing yourself. Comparison is the thief of joy, right?
Yeah.
If you want to get to the same level as me, right, in terms of like the work that I do, get involved. Involve yourself in the more complex issues. Don't get too complacent and comfortable in just random, everyday, business as usual checklists, and you're ticking off a box and saying that's your job. Be involved in the more complex issues. If you see a certain email you don't understand, ask me about it. Get involved, ask questions, talk to this person. And then over time, you realize that the next time an issue like that comes through, you're very well capable of handling it on your own. And then you're starting to bring more value to the team as well. So I would say to people that are transitioning from like the college life into the corporate space, get involved as much as you can. Don't just become complacent, right? Get involved. If there's something happening where you have an opportunity to network, social team events, go for them. I've never missed a social event in my workplace ever, because I'm just like, oh my gosh, opportunity to meet people.
And also pizza and wine.
Also pizza. You know what I mean? That helps.
Yeah.
But also like the networking aspect allows you to ask questions from different people. This way you get answers quicker. This way you are able to know exactly who to go to for what situation. And being involved also allows you to, it keeps you on your toes, right? You learn something new every day, and it compounds. Someone, I think it was Reese Wabara, love and adore him. He's the CEO of Mania Devoir. He said to me, not to me directly, but via Instagram or whatever, but it feels like he's talking to me.
Yeah, it is like he's talking to me.
Very relatable content. And then he said, small actionable steps that you take might feel very tiny now, but then they compound. There's the power of the compounding effect. So over time, these things will mean something. So today, just do one, two, three tiny little steps. But then imagine doing that over the 365 days of the year.
It's like
where you're gonna be,
a whole book, basically.
Exactly. And so when I started adopting that principle, I was like, okay, so every day I have a series of checklists and things that I know I need to do, basic, that will allow me to get closer to my goal.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So,
and then knowing the differences between a job and a career.
Yeah.
Because that puts you in alignment of what you really want. I mean, there are people...
Longevity, I think.
Exactly, longevity. And then having those people in your spaces who have a career, who have built a portfolio over the years, and making sure you're in that circle. Because if you're not in that circle, then it's where you're going to learn the skills you need to really get to a level.
And you need that portfolio of skills as well, because it's not just about the CV, I think.
Yeah, the CV is old school at this stage.
It's always cool, but then it's also about if you go to any team and you say to them, these are the skills that I have and this is what I can contribute. Are you someone that they actually need? You know what I mean?
You have to think one step ahead though. Like
exactly.
Always, like if there's I think problem solving is very important in the workspace today as well, is that if there's something you feel can change how your team works, for example. Make sure that you're building a plan on how
challenging process.
Exactly. Make sure you're building that plan, and you are the first person to put that plan on the table and to push it forward. Because once you do that little thing, that can be
you become reliable.
You become reliable. It's
and
your portfolio.
They know to come to you for certain. Now you value.
Exactly. And this is things we learn in college, is that we have assignments to complete, we have projects to complete.
But then it's also like when you're in college, you don't view it that way.
Oh, yeah, that's true. It's like when you were in school and they were teaching you maths and trigonometry. You're like, when am I going to use this in the real world?
Use this in the real world, right?
Like,
and then you realize, oh
snap! I got taxes to file.
You've gotten to that point now where you actually need this. I think at the time when you're in college, there's the frustration of, oh my gosh, is any of this actually valuable? Because you've never been in that corporate space in that way. So you don't actually know that, yes, this stuff is valuable. The fact that if they ask for assignments, there are deadlines in corporate as well.
That's it.
If they ask for you to come to class or whatever for lectures, to take notes. It happens in corporate.
Exactly. And teamwork, building and everything.
I have a pile of notebooks where I'm just like... as she's talking or whoever's training is talking, I'm just like, okay,
I forgot what it's like to write. I've had to get back into it.
All of this, iPads and all of that,
Oh.
you have them, right? But
Yeah.
then you quickly get to a point where you don't have enough time to start putting passwords and looking for this. You just need a pen and paper to get as much information
And your
as
brain
you
doesn't
can.
actually register it as quickly either.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So I find the notebook structure to help me quite a lot. I think I've learned many skills through that as well. But do not be afraid of the corporate space. Like, I don't think there's anything to fear in the corporate space.
There really isn't.
There really isn't. A lot of people feel like, oh, if I'm a creative, I can't ever get into corporate, otherwise it will kill my creative side.
There are so many corporate companies who are looking for creatives, you know, like in my current job right now, I'm actually building a logo for my team.
The creative aspect.
And that's because they know, they're like, oh, she's good at design.
She's good at
I'm like, damn it, they know, now I have to work more. So, I mean, in these spaces, every little thing you do, your skill set, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. If you're creative, honestly, stick to that skill.
It will take you far.
It will take you so far.
It will take you far. Don't lose that element. Even if you have to like incorporate, corporate elements into it. That skill of just being a creative, it will come in handy at many aspects and many different points of your life.
Exactly.
But in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, that was In Conversation with Harvey. And today we're talking about our transitions into the corporate space, the challenges and joys of being in the corporate space, but also how we as young adults in Ireland can ease that transition for a lot of people, because we do understand the pressures. We do understand the pressures of college, of working part-time. Most people are in retail, the pressures of that. But today's conversation was to sort of encourage you and to show you that it is possible to have a creative career and also a corporate career. We're doing it, and if we can, it shows that it has been done, and so can you. If you have any further questions that you'd like answered, please do feel free to reach out to myself or Judy or anyone who's part of the team, and we'd be more than happy to assist in that regard. And also do leave your opinions and whatever your thoughts are on the matter in any of the comment sections below or above or on the side, whichever way. But from myself and the team here at In Conversation with Harvey, it's good night.
Bye.